When it comes time to put away Christmas, it can feel a little sad to get rid of all of those special ornaments and the bling and all the decor and just kind of go back to our everyday looking decor. It can leave our homes feeling a little lackluster and a little boring. So today I have for you some winter decor ideas that will help make our homes feel a little bit more festive, a little bit longer, but without the Christmas or red. If you watched any of my Christmas decor videos, you would know that I love using Epsom salt for faux snow. So I'm going to show you how I used it to create a little mood lighting.
Okay, for this first DIY, you're going to want some Mod Podge, a mason jar, and a nice thick paintbrush. And you're just going to want to apply that Mod Podge onto the glass until you have it completely covered. Taking your Epsom salt, you're going to want to mix that with a little bit of sparkle. So I'm just going in with some of this reflection sparkle I got on sale at Michael's, and I'm just adding it with the Epsom salt into a different mason jar and just giving it a little shake so that it all combines nicely. And this is going to give you that sparkle with that faux snow look. Super simple. All you're going to want to do is generously shake that faux snow mixture onto the decoupage or the Mod Podge on the outside. I always make that mistake. Does anyone else always make that mistake? When you have the mason jar completely covered, just let it dry. And then I decided to go in with a little bit of this Folk Art Select seal. It's supposed to seal everything in. I tried it out a little bit. It worked. I think we're going to find out. We're just going to go for it. And I just lightly sprayed that all over. Now you can get a Rust-Oleum sealer if you want to use that instead. At Christmas time, Dollar Tree has these bells that come with this little bit of greenery, the pine cone, and I decided not to throw them out, but instead use them for this DIY. But basically all you'll need to recreate it is some pine cones, maybe if you want some greenery and some twine. If you're using the Dollar Tree bells, however, all I did was clip down those wires a little bit, removed the twine, hot glued the bow back onto the back of the pine cone and greenery cluster, added a little bit more hot glue to that so that I could put the twine on the back, adhered that, and then simply tied it around the jar. And there you have a simple, beautiful winter touch.
There are some people who believe that front door wreaths are only for Christmas. I am not one of those people. I love a front door wreath any time of year. And it always makes me a little sad to take down our Christmas wreath from the front door because it always just looks so pretty, inviting, and festive. So I came up with this idea for a sparkly, fun winter front door wreath that I'm hoping you're really gonna like.
To start off with, you're just going to want to grab some twinkle LED lights and wrap it around a grapevine wreath form. Now we're going back in with the Mod Podge and Epsom salt to do the same faux snow technique we just did, only this time you're going to want to use a little paintbrush because you're only going to want to paint the grapevine twigs. Now common sense would dictate that you should do this step before wrapping in your twinkle lights, but I actually already had this wreath wrapped in the twinkle light, so that's why I'm working in between. And just like we did with the last DIY, you're just gonna sprinkle that Epsom salt mixture on nice and generously. Once the Epsom salt has had a bit of time to dry, this is when I would actually go in with that sealer again, but as you see, I kind of do it a little bit later on because I seem to be doing this DIY backwards for some reason, so do as I say, definitely not as I did. It's still Christmas, so all of my Christmas greenery is in use, which is why I'm going in with just some spring fern picks. These are going to go behind some other greenery, so it's going to cover it up, but still kind of give it a little bit of that ferny, piney kind of texture. That being said, if you still have some Christmas greenery laying around the house, use that. It will definitely look just as good, if not better. Skip the hot glue and just slide those picks in between the grapevine wreath twigs. Now I decided to go with lamb's ear because it has a little bit of a sparkle to it, and so I thought that that would kind of tie in with the whole winter look, and so this is the one I went a little bit more heavy-handed on and added a bunch of this on both sides of the wreath, covering up those original ferny picks. picks. Next, I decided to add some white picks. They just say spring bush. There is no name to these flowers, but they were fluffy and white, and so I thought that they would really tie in with the whole wintry feel, even though again, 100% spring picks. Okay, this is the part where I did things backwards, and after putting on the greenery, I then sprayed it with the sealant. Again, I would do that right after you do the Epsom salt, but before you put on the twinkle lights. Now again, I don't want to use hot glue on this wreath form. I might want to use this again for a different style wreath. So I'm going to wrap some twine around the pine cones and use the twine to adhere it to the wreath form by simply putting them into place and then just tying the twine around the wreath. For another frosty touch, I hot glued on some white sparkly pine cones from Dollar Tree. Now I wanted the battery pack for the wreath to be accessible, so I went in with this snowflake patterned ribbon. I had a little bit of piece left, and I covered the battery pack with the ribbon, forming a little pouch to hold the battery pack in with a strip of hot glue. And then to cover up the front part of the ribbon, I made a simple bow, just hot glued the pieces together, a small piece of the matching ribbon, and folded that into thirds, used a little bit of hot glue to hold that into place, and then used that strip to bunch the center of the ribbon up, hot glue that in place as well, and then hot glued that to the front of the ribbon that's covering the battery pack. To add a bit more wintry touch and cover up the fact we've used all spring florals, I added just a few more of those wintry pine cones, and there you have it.
Way back when our son was really little, I bought these glass star-shaped pillar candle holders from IKEA. I really liked them. I just don't seem to pull them out all that often. They sort of sit with all my candle holders and I forget about them and we just don't use them. So I've come up with an idea to turn little small candle holders and combine it with a rustic element to make an unexpected candle display.
Please note I said pillar candles and I meant to say tapered candles. We're using tapered candles for this DIY. Okay, in our wood pile, I had this old piece of wood. It was really well worn and I just loved the way it looked. One end was really worn and the other end looked too brand new. So I'm going to show you how you can use a little bit of this antiquing wax and a hammer to make the new end look a lot more like the original side. Super easy, just get all your frustrations out and bang the end of that piece of wood with the hammer on both ends. Then you're just going to want to apply a little bit of antiquing wax, paying special attention to the small little crevice areas, really getting that wax in there and then wiping it away a bit with a baby wipe. Use a stippling brush and some black onyx to add a little areas that are a bit darker and then go back in with that hammer and beat that end again. For a final touch, use a little bit of an off-white paint. I'm using milk jug paint here just to add a few light areas on the end and then soften that up with a baby wipe and a little bit more of that antiquing wax just to blend everything in quite nicely. What do you think? Do you think that we were able to successfully age the newer end? Here are the glass star candle holders for the tapered candles, but I also show here you can use those tea lights from Dollar Tree. Now I recommend using a ruler just to make sure that you get all of the lights straight and everything spaced properly, and then just go in with a little bit of Gorilla Hot Glue and adhere each of the candle holders to the wood base. A simple way to have elegance meet rustic charm.
Okay, for this idea, I used an old IKEA frame. I think at one point every DIY mom had this frame in their home. And my daughter had it, she used it to do her makeup for the longest time. And then one day it got broken and I removed the mirror but still had the frame. And I knew I wanted to do something with this, I just wasn't quite sure what, but I think I figured it out.
Okay, here she is, the white IKEA plastic ornate princessy type frame. What I really like about this frame is the ornate detailing and the shape of the overall frame. It just looks a little cheap. So we're gonna go in with some antiquing wax and a nice big fluffy brush to fix that. Apply the wax quite thickly. You really want to get into those crevices and then later on remove. So more is more to begin with. Go in with a dry cloth and just wipe away any of the raised areas. You want the wax to sit in the crevices, and then go in with a dry fluffy brush and get into those crevices a bit more. Remove some more of that wax and then again wipe with the cloth and keep going back and forth with those two until you achieve the look that you like. I had a ton of these little wooden snowflakes from Dollar Tree and more of those sparkly pine cones, and so I thought it would be fun to combine the two, but I didn't want everything to be the same color, so some of them I used a little bit more of that antiquing wax and then softening the wax with a baby white. Now I also went in with a little bit of white acrylic paint on some of the ones with the antiquing wax. I did this in a very distressed look, and then for some of the other ones that I didn't put antiquing wax on, and a couple that I did, I put the paint on a bit thicker. Now the frame still had the little clasps to hold the mirror in place, so I tied a piece of twine to the top clasp, string on one of the larger snowflakes, and then use a little dab of hot glue to keep it in place and facing forward. Now you can see here that the twine had to be put in a zigzag pattern in order to work with the existing clasps in the back. And so to ensure that your finished look isn't too crowded, you're going to want to work out where you should be using the smaller snowflakes. And also I went in with a few pine cones, both the natural and the sparkly white, and sort of worked out where it would make most sense to have a larger snowflake versus the more tapered end of the twine, where perhaps it would be better to have a smaller pine cone or snowflake placed there. And then just continue on like that, zigzagging between the clasps, adding the snowflakes where you can string them on and some pine cones, and then just tying it off at the end. Only a few of my snowflakes could be strung on, so I used hot glue to apply the ones that couldn't and a few natural pine cones. Again, using this to just fill in the areas and make sure everything doesn't look too crowded. And there you have a simple touch of winter wall art. For this really simple winter DIY, I just used a basket that I literally found for $5 at a garage sale this last summer. The shape of it is so beautiful, but really any basket will do. I placed a string of LED twinkle lights at the bottom of the basket and then put a couple of floral foam discs on top. Covered this with a piece of drop cloth that I had on hand and then a bunch of giant pine cones. Next, string the twinkle lights around the pine cones, working it in between each of the, I don't even know what that word is. If you know what that word is, drop it in the comments below. What are those little pieces on the pine cones called? Next, I went in with some Dollar Tree berry strands and also just weaved that in and out of the pine cone pieces. Then I added some dried oranges. I'd used this throughout Christmas. I'll leave a link on how to make them if you want to know. And then I just added some smaller pine cones to fill in any of the places where you could still see the cloth underneath.
Well, that's it for today's winter DIYs. If you enjoyed those, make sure that you subscribe, give me a thumbs up. If you hit the notification bell, it'll let you know the next time I upload. Oh, and you might enjoy these.